to talk to you.
Can we call a message from UN family? Miss Winnie Bianyima, UN family. Let's clap hands for UN family.
Thank you very much. The Deputy President, the Minister of Health, other ministers and deputy ministers present, the Premier of Northwest Province, MECs, comrades here, all protocol observed, Dumela. Kunjani. Thank you very much. I'm humbled and excited to be with you here in Orkney, in Northwest Province of your beautiful country, South Africa, to commemorate World AIDS Day. Thank you for the warm welcome to the heart of your community. On World AIDS Day, and indeed every day, as a young woman said here, we remember the millions of lives lost to HIV over the last 40 years. More than 3.5 million of them here in South Africa. Lives lost to despair, stigma, and exclusion. We also celebrate the struggles and the resilience of those alive today, because it has been the huge progress that the world has made against the epidemic. I want to start by paying tribute to your liberation movement that started in townships here in your country. Your struggle inspired and moved the whole world to action to end the evil system of apartheid. Amandla. Yeah. The eyes of the world are once again on South Africa. You started late, but today you are making remarkable progress against AIDS. More than 5 million of your people living with HIV are now on antiretroviral treatment. That's 20% of all the people on treatment throughout the world. That's remarkable. You have reduced the number of AIDS deaths in the last 8 years by 53%. HIV incidence, the number of new infections, you've cut that down in the last 8 years by 44%. Great progress. But yet, we cannot rest. We, your friends and yourselves, we are still on a journey. There are almost 2.5 million people living with HIV who are not yet on treatment. There's a job to do. There are more than 1,400 new infections among adolescent girls and young women every week. 1,400. That's intolerable. So today on World AIDS Day, here in South Africa and around the world, let's commit to overcome the challenges, the barriers that we face. Governments around the world committed to end AIDS by 2030. That's about 10 years from now. We must keep that promise. But we can't keep it by doing business as usual. So let me give you 5 things that we must do faster, be more focused on in order to beat AIDS by 2030. First, we can't beat AIDS unless we make huge progress on the rights of women and girls here in Africa. We have to. It's unacceptable that HIV is the leading cause of death for women between the age of 15 and 49. 15 million girls worldwide have experienced sex that is forced at some point in their life. There lies the cause. 3 billion women and girls in countries where there is rape within marriage and it is not a crime. How can that be? Enough is enough. All women and girls must have the right to choose if they are going to have sex, with whom to have sex, and how to protect themselves. So let's bring power of our movements, the HIV movement, the women's movement, the youth movement. Let's bring our power to end gender inequality and violence against women and girls. Then we'll beat AIDS. Second, to protect the human rights of all people, to end marginalization and the terrible injustice of AIDS-related deaths. We can be proud that 24.5 million people in the world are now on treatment, but we can't accept that every year or last year 770,000 died of AIDS. We can't accept that people living with HIV should be dying today in 2019. It is not a question of the science. It's a question of inequality, of powerlessness, of exclusion, and that we can change. The system can now work for millions of people living with HIV, but it's failing for those who are marginalized. Gay men, men who have sex with men, transgender people, sex workers, people who use drugs, prisoners, foreign workers, and migrants. All these are people on the margins, and they are the ones where new infections are rising fastest. So, social injustice says human rights violations must end for us to beat AIDS. On World AIDS Day, I call upon all countries to repeal laws that discriminate and criminalize groups of people, driving them away from life-saving services. Third, we need to put science and technology to work to save lives. The world has spent billions of dollars developing the fastest tests, the best treatments, new prevention technologies such as PrEP, and other methods that women can control. Let's put them to work in every community, in every country. Here in South Africa, your progress to the target of 90-90-90 is impressive. 90% of South Africans living with HIV know their status. They've tested. That's good. 68% who know their status are on treatment. And of those who are on treatment, 88% have undetectable viral load, meaning that they can't transmit it. That's good progress. I'd like to commend some districts here in South Africa that have actually hit the 90-90-90, and we celebrated that a couple of days ago. But think about it. If there were no rapid tests, would you have your first 90? What about the second 90 of being on treatment? Would you achieve it if you are waiting for months or years for treatment? You couldn't. What about viral suppression? If you're still using those old tablets where you swallow 6 or 12 instead of one fixed dose combination, one pill. So science has been important. We want more science, more innovations to take this struggle forward. So I call on every Ministry of Health, every National AIDS Program, every community to be bold and quick and get on the fast track. Let's put science, innovation, technology to work for people. Fourth, communities. Communities, communities, communities. That's the focus of UNAIDS report this year. On Friday, comrades, I visited Block X Clinic in Shwane and met there amazing people living with HIV. I saw how the Rishidze project with 5 leading HIV organizations under the leadership of TAC, how they are unleashing the power of communities, empowering people living with HIV to monitor services and to hold officials accountable. I see my time is running. So, we can spend a lot of dollars and rands building clinics, but we will not make progress unless communities can hold their deliverers, service deliverers accountable. So empower communities. Finally, financing. We will not beat AIDS by 2030 without the resources to do this work. Yet, our region, Africa, with the highest burden, is facing serious financing challenges. There are many, but let me name 2. One is actually the issue of declining domestic resource mobilization on the continent. We are failing to raise the resources that will pay for health care. And without raising enough resources, we will never own our epidemic. Thank goodness in South Africa, you've made tremendous strides. 80% of your resources, of the resources for the response, come from your own people. That's important, but I call on the rest of Africa. The second big issue is debt. We have been borrowing, and now the chickens have come home to roost. Many of our countries are now entering programs of austerity, cutting health in order to pay debt. This is bad. This is wrong. Vulnerable people living with HIV must not be made to pay the price of this financial debt crisis. It's wrong. We must find pathways out of debt that protect investments in health and in HIV response. UNAIDS stands ready to work with African countries to find those pathways. Lastly, for the donor community, AIDS is a shared responsibility. Do not roll back. Do not walk away at this time of need. Continue investing the resources in health and in the global HIV response. I end by saying, comrades, we can beat AIDS. Just like you beat that evil system of apartheid, we can beat AIDS. We need to focus, we need to work harder, we need to work faster, but we can beat AIDS. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Forward with international solidarity, forward.